Hey there, Possum Rob here. Moving on with Season 1, Episode 11, Survivors. Survivors is going to be a story that's going to focus on our boy, Michael Garibaldi. We're going to dig a little bit into his past, a little bit into some of the things that we've heard about him secondhand from other people. You remember that one guy, the senator guy or the general guy, I can't remember which one it was talking to Sinclair, and he said that he was putting Garibaldi on the case. Right? And then he was like, you sure that's a good idea? This guy's a drunk. And he's a screw-up. And Michael O'Hare. No, it wasn't Michael O'Hare. It was Jeffrey Sinclair that said, well, I trust him, and I think he's going to do good. You know, and of course, Michael Garibaldi had to hear that, right? Like he was sitting, you know, where the guy couldn't see him, but he had to hear it. And, you know that had to bother him, but he was like, he let it pass over him, you know. He's like, yeah, I get it. People think I'm a screw-up. So here we're going to get a little more elaboration into why that is, and then that's going to be couched in a kind of a frame-up job kind of story. So it's a good one. It's a good one, and I like it. I love anything that delves into the character of Michael Garibaldi. I think he's one of the more fascinating of the human characters in the show. Just because of this kind of thing right here, these sort of demons in the past, not really skeletons in the closet, just sort of a past that he's not super proud of, you know what I mean? And what it will cause him to do, how it affects the way he acts now, and that sort of thing. I think it's very cool when we get episodes that delve into that, and it becomes a thing throughout the series. Like none of this stuff that you're seeing in these beginning episodes is going to stay in season 1. You know, all of this stuff will have some echo or other, some bigger, some smaller, in the later seasons. So like all of this stuff is good. You know, is going to come back to roost. You know. At some point or another. So what I'm looking at here is a running time of 43:42. So if you got that, you're going to stay synced up pretty good. You got your playhead on the 000, and we are going to hit the play button in 3, 2, 1, go. Earth Force One. That's going to be your president there running around. So yeah, that whole thing about immigration and all of that stuff, that's all important stuff there. So keep in mind that when you're seeing these headlines of things going on in what they call Earth Dome, which is like Washington, D.C., but it's in Geneva, I believe, that it's going to be important for some of the motivations going forward. I love how she brings the Russian thing into it. It's sort of a different take on Chekhov. He was always bringing it in as a positive thing. She's always bringing it in as a, not negative, just very cynical. Yeah, considering where the explosion happened and the fact that the station is rotating, you probably really shouldn't have seen a guy fly past the CNC window like that. But hey, whatever. But you're getting a lot more input regarding these sort of national level, if you will excuse the word, issues that are hitting the Earth Alliance and it's coming more and more into the foreground. Like going forward, stuff like that, stuff what people are doing back on Earth is going to be affecting Babylon 5 a lot more. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting season 2 up here because these opening credits are a little dull. We're just kind of watching some stars and watching some words. But I mean, once you've seen it once, even an exciting one gets a little dull after a while, I guess. All right, here we go. Uh oh, somebody from the past. Uh oh. Yeah, well, he's saluting indoors. It's always a good thing to get started on the right foot with a guy whose station you're walking around on. Scenes like this, where they're walking through their Zocalo, they do a really good job of making this seem like these two guys ain't a huge part of this station. I mean, like, theoretically they are, but like when they're walking around, there's a ton of other stuff going on. That's what I love about Jakar. Like, he can be grim and like full of gravitas, like the whole thing where we was talking about the walkers, the Sigma 957, and yeah, we got Mikey letting some stuff bug him. I mean, if he's been doing this every few days, maybe the guy does need to be a little, shooken up a little bit. Hey, dude, we got to stop this. But anyways, Chakar can be very very serious and very dramatic and awesome. But he also handles this sort of comic stuff really well. Shutting up a little bit for respect for the scene. It's interesting to me that Sinclair didn't already know this story. Like, he's the one that is sort of vouching for Garibaldi against all these other people. Yeah, see. Hey, she's a go-getter. Okay, so she's reckless and is going to kill a guy. Hey, you don't get to you don't get to almost kill a guy for that, though. And you have to ask yourself, why would he know something like that? And that lady should be up on charges. She injected the guy with something. She didn't know what she was doing, and now he's dead. That's murder at least. Your ass needs to be in the brig for killing a guy. That don't matter. You took an action to kill the guy. Ugh. Now that I don't have a problem with. Yeah, he does need to be suspended at this point because he's under suspicion. But I think we all know that Garibaldi didn't do it. That's not even a spoiler. Like, if you were thinking he might have done it, considering he's in the show for the rest of the run, uh, that would have been a very strange plot point. But he ought to know that too. You know what I mean? Like, he shouldn't be putting up too much of a fight here. He knows what standard procedure is. Now, she's horrible. She's a terrible person. Don't get me wrong. That he would have done the same thing, if somebody else, like somebody even on his team, had been implicated in this. He would have said, all right, sorry, but, we got to suspend you because they think you did the thing, and we know you didn't do the thing, but it's okay. It's one of those things where you have to say this chief of security doesn't know more than to not hide stuff in his, like, the fact that all of that crap was in his His quarters should tell you that he didn't do it. I love Ivanova. Of course, she isn't escorting her out, but whatever. I got mixed feelings about that. You know what I mean? Because there's, you know, putting a damper on things so that this lady that obviously has this grudge against Garibaldi doesn't run roughshod over everything. But then there's also like genuine sabotage of, legitimate security things. Now, if they do it the same way the Army and the Navy does it here, then she is the same rank as that lady. Lieutenant commander and major are the same rank. And General Netter is named for Doug Netter, one of the producers on the show. It's a good scene right there. It gives you a little bit like we're focused on Garibaldi on this episode, but it gives you a little insight into Londo there too. That whole odd man out thing. That's motivating some of his actions like down the road. Important sentence. I don't like that Jerry Doyle hasn't moved from where he is. He's still standing sideways to Jakar. It's interesting. This is something that Jakar does a couple of different times throughout the series. When somebody's experiencing something like this, he's like, "Hey, how about you come work for us?" It's very interesting. That is one of my favorite quotes from this show. The matter, energy, and enlightened self-interesting. This script is by somebody else, Mark Scott Zickrey, but that line was actually written by JMS. JMS talks about how like when other people, and this was a problem with Star Trek too. I talked about it a little bit on those reviews, but we have the problem with you got another guy writing your script, and maybe they don't know too much about the characters or whatever, and so when they write that lines for those characters, it doesn't sound like something those characters would say. You know what I mean? And so he has to go through and make some changes like that. He was like, that's not something that Jakar would say or whatever. And now, like that, then so things like those lines, those little lines like that, get put in there by JMS when he's doing that kind of, I don't know, what would you would call it, a dialogue polish or whatever. Yeah, that's gonna be the problem, right? Like, there's no way any of these guys don't think he's setting them up, or even if he's being earnest. Like, once he gets back into his job as a security guy, he's not going to come back and go, "Hey, I happen to know you sold an illegal ID card because you sold it to me." Oh man, like a lot of these areas that have alternate atmosphere. You hear them talk about it from time to time. They've got like methane is part of it. You want to be shooting off a PPG in there where there's methane running around? I'm kind of surprised that that's even possible right there. There's this door, and you see all that stuff coming out. and he doesn't like spin the little thing to make sure it shuts, it locks or whatever. I gotta admit, I kind of like that shirt. There's a little '80s there. There's a little '90s there. It's a good shirt. You got a few too many buttons, I think. That's kind of funny. The stunt actor that just came around and started beating him up, I guess it was like he knew he was there, and it was like, I don't know if he knows that's Garibaldi or what, but it's like, it's kind of weird. They just came around the corner and started beating up the guy that was there. I mean, it's obviously the dude from before. He's got a name. I don't remember what it is. But it's like, how did you know that was the guy you wanted? And how do you know? See, now we got a problem. The Drazi, you're gonna find. I haven't really focused on it too much up to this point. There's been a couple of examples. Well, you find that the Drazi are spoiling for a fight like all the time. Like whenever there's anything big happening where somebody's getting their butt kicked, like a fight in a Zocalo or whatever, you always find Drazi in there. They're very violent people. Garibaldi doing the Batman exit. And here's the problem, like that one guy is one thing, right? That came in with Major what's the name. But now he's got to fight like his own people. You know what I mean? You see how his shirt collar is poking up out of his jacket? That bothers me. I know he shouldn't, but it does. That seems like, half the time it's not poking up, not just on that guy, but on anybody. And half the time it isn't. It's like one of those is correct, and you need to pick one and stick with it. Yeah, geez, with the saluting. And his rank is equivalent to lieutenant colonel, so he's actually her superior. But it's all about duty and like what your purview is and all that. He ain't wrong. Yeah, who didn't see that coming, right? I mean, it's a good detail. Don't get me wrong, but like when he's paying him with more Centauri ducats, you're like, uh oh, that's not gonna look good. Yeah, Lou's a good guy. He's a recurring character. He's gonna be hanging around a lot. Cue the record scratch noise. I always like seeing the aliens wearing hats. Like not alien hats, just regular hats. I don't know why. It's just funny to me. It reminds me of that Far Side where the shark that's got the cowboy hat on. Look me, I'm a cowboy. Howdy, howdy, howdy. I always wonder what they're doing when they bite it like that. I mean, I understand that like you're trying to figure out if it's fake, but is that still a thing in like the 24th century or whatever this is? 23rd? Now, now this is really good here. Number one, you got some like get like a scientific cylinder over there on the right, but they've been very careful not to make this moment unearned in any way, right? The point, like one of the things that was going to happen in this story is that Garibaldi is going to fall off the wagon, but it couldn't be just because she came in and was a jerk to him and reminded him of some bad guys or whatever. At this point, he is like a man without a country. Like he's got nothing, right? He don't have a quarters. He don't have a job. He don't have his freedom. If he steps out of line, if he steps out in the open and they see him, then he's going to jail. He's completely on his own, and not even a hat guy apparently is going to be his friend. So that is where you have to be for that to happen, especially Garibaldi. Like there are some people that probably are looking for an excuse, right? But Michael has been passing out in your food. It's funny no matter what, and it's a Drazi, so But they had to make it to where it made sense for his character. Like he wouldn't be the person he is if his resolve to stay sober wasn't really strong, right? And he certainly wouldn't be somebody that Sinclair would have trusted. That said, Jerry Doyle's depiction of a drunk guy, not really. That a little caricatured, a little cliched, but that's all right. Like I've said before, this is kind of his first big role. Now that's interesting. She called him a blip. That that term comes back, but it ends up having a very specific meaning that would not apply to Michael Garibaldi. It does mean somebody like a fugitive that's on the loose, and maybe there are other uses of the term, but you specifically get a definition of that term later on that would not apply to Garibaldi. I didn't remember that she said that or used that term. So that's important there, not only for this episode, but for President Santiago. He says he's going to open up a little bit to alien immigration and trade policies, and how it's cheesing off the home guard. Well, it's not cheesing off just the home guard. It's, yeah, this is one of those things where you may have heard me talk about this before, but I'm never a fan of when somebody has to do something stupid in order for the plot to advance, or for the bad guys to, get outsmarted or whatever. Like somebody's got to be an idiot. If that guy hadn't, looked down. That's another thing that bugs me so much. Is is and it happens a lot of times when like somebody comes home and they tell their spouse, get out of the house right now, get ready, we gotta go, and and they go, like, what? Why? It's like, no, we gotta go right now, no questions. I'm like, no, I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what we're doing. Like, oh my god, like if you if somebody's telling you something like that, don't be like, where are you? Just shut it down. The guy's obviously, he's somebody you trust to say something like this, and if he's saying shut down the drop, you need to shut down the drop. Stop. Don't worry about where he is until you do what he's telling you to do. And Sinclair's one to talk about fighting battles alone. I like the Air Force dress uniforms. I think they look pretty cool. Right? That's not true. Correct. That like I can't be on Garibaldi's side on this one. No, that was awful, and honestly, she should be punished. But I can see how why she might not be. But it sure ain't one of those "there's nothing to forgive" things. You know what I mean? No comment. So like these days, it's pretty obvious, but it's kind of neat that they tried this. All of that is virtual. That ladder is the only thing that's real in that shot. I mean, you can tell now, but at the time that and on standard def television. Remember, this is before HD came out. Um, that was pretty stinking impressive. All right, so there you have it. There was survivors. It's hard to say necessarily what the episode title is referring to. I mean, I guess we're talking about Garibaldi and what's her name there, Liana, being survivors. That her dad died, and how they were affected by that, so that they are probably the titular survivors there. And a great episode into like what makes Garibaldi tick, what's behind him, behind his eyes, behind his motivations, behind the things he does, even the things he says, and all of the sort of cynicism that he has about him. Is all informed by these sort of dark things in his past, right? And he's got reasons to be sort of paranoid at times. He's got reasons to be very suspicious of everything at times. And he's got reasons to also be paranoid and suspicious about himself, right? That's a big part too. And that comes back a number of times in this show. And it's not one of those things that becomes repetitive. Oh Lord, here we go again with the Garibaldi going, I suck. No, it's not anything like that. Um, but it does cause him to do some things that another character may not have done, or vice versa. So it's a great Garibaldi episode, and also, like I said before, we got a pretty good look into the motivations of Londo Malari too. Like we got some stuff from Jakar, but it really wasn't very penetrative. It wasn't that kind of thing that we got with Londo, where he's like, I've been where you are, I know what's up with that, and that's a great scene too. And we get some more of Londo, sort of elaborating on that, down the line. So that'll be a fun time too to check it out, because I love these. Like, I don't know, you guys probably know by now that I love this stuff when we delved into the characters. I like the story, I like the plot, I like the big plot and the little plots. But I love things where we get a good look at expanding and not just extrapolating on the character, but interpolating and getting into the center of the character too. I love those kind of episodes, especially when the person playing the character is particularly good. And while I don't think that Jerry Doyle is as accomplished an actor as someone like Andreas Katsulas or Peter Jurasik are, he still does a great job with this character in these moments. You know what I mean? Like, there's some like sort of acting instincts that he doesn't necessarily have just yet. But when he gets into the meat of the character, I think he does a really good job. So next episode is By Any Means Necessary. I am a union man myself, so this one has kind of a special place in my heart. But anyways, it's got some more stuff, and we're bringing in a lot more. You remember when we had Parliament of Dreams and we had all of the religious beliefs of all the different races? Well, we kind of left the Nons out a little bit on that one because they're not very open with these things, bringing other people into it. They don't like to share that stuff. But we do have a little bit more of an insight into the non-religious stuff in this next episode too. That's going to be the B plot. So that's going to be a good one. And so we will be back for that. And until next time, possum friends are awesome friends. Take it easy, all right? Later.